Hey y'all, it's Miriam, and hopefully this live stream is working. I'm in the middle of a portrait right now, and I thought I would just hop on to um, kind of tell you guys what's going through my mind as I'm painting this, how I'm processing it. And if anyone joins, feel free to ask any questions. I'm new to this, to the live streaming, so hopefully I can figure out how to read comments and everything like that. So for starters, this whole portrait is in oil. A lot of times I do mixed media work and I'll start out with a acrylic underpainting, but for this one I have decided to go straight into oil. The other thing, and this is a big question that I get asked a lot, uh, I'm not using any medium or thinner for this whole entire painting. I'm just using the paint straight out of the tube, and it is my favorite way to work with oil paints. I just love how much texture you can capture with the paint straight out of the tube. So no oils, or I mean, no mediums, no thinners for this. I also find that I avoid running into a lot of problems when I use the paint straight out of the tube. I don't really have to worry so much about my oils sinking into the canvas or sinking into previous layers. It's just helpful for me when I'm approaching a painting like this. The other thing, as I'm going through this, I'm honestly, there's two things that are going through my mind. One, I'm trying to process this as real. Like this is a flat painting on a canvas, but in my mind, I'm like literally trying to gaslight myself into perceiving this as an actual human taking up space in multiple dimensions and really trying to bring it to life. It takes me a long time to get into that mindset, maybe about 15 minutes into the painting process, uh, where I can kind of slip into that mindset of processing it as real. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe I sound like a crazy person saying that, but that's what's going through my mind. The other thing that really helps me get into that mindset is processing each of these as simple shapes. So as I'm going through the eyeball, I'm constantly thinking about all of the hundreds of spheres that I've rendered. Same with the nose uh, and the chin. I haven't gone to this area yet. But as I'm going through the nose, if you can render out a sphere, if you can render out a cylinder, you can render a nose. All right. So all of those simple shapes really going to help with that. The other thing, I am this is day 2 of this painting that I'm going on. Um, I did not wait for the previous layers to dry underneath before I started going. I actually really like it when the paint starts to dry a little bit and it's a little tacky. It just really helps me blend in a lot of these areas. I find it easier to blend when the paint is kind of tacky like that. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the big things with this. Oh, I know there's a lot of chaos going on. Um, Parts of this are rendered, parts of this are not, like, the background, all these flowers, if you could even call them flowers at this point. But that doesn't bother me. I like the chaos of it. And if you're interested in the full process, like from beginning to end, I'll be posting this on my Patreon. Um, if anyone's interested in that. Patreon is it's $5 a month, but you get a free 2-week trial. You go watch all the videos and then cancel in that time if you want. But I talk a lot about the process. I talk about my skin tones, how I build that up all on there. All right. So I figured I would just do a little live painting. A lot of times I post time-lapse videos and it looks like, this is a very fast process. And I figured I'd just do a little live painting and show you guys what the real-time process actually looks like. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. And hopefully I can figure out how to work the YouTube live and I can actually see and respond to those. The other thing is Oh, normally I listen to music or podcasts or audiobooks while I paint. That's another thing that helps me get into that mindset of processing these, not as flat, as a flat surface, but as multi-dimensional shapes taking up space. So find something that works for you. I know a lot of people say they get distracted if they put on an audiobook or a podcast. Maybe music does it for you, but really take some time to figure out what gets you in that mindset. All right, I'll stop rambling. The other reason why I wanted to say that is just because I apologize for the awkward silence that is upcoming. So as I'm going through these folds, again, I'm thinking of simple shapes, and actually, what's going through my mind right now is I'm thinking back about all of the different clothing, folds and clothing that I have rendered out. And that's basically what this is here, is just a fold. Like a warped cylinder wrapping around the eye here. And as I get into some of these areas here, like in the folds, I'm not thinking of it as, oh, this area is darker, so I need to add darker paint here. I'm thinking in my head, oh, this area is deeper. This area is going back into space, so I need to push my paint back into space. And for me to be able to do that, I need to use darker, more saturated colors. So even just you and your internal dialogue when you're going through painting something, the way that you talk in your internal dialogue about these things, I think affects the outcome a whole lot. All right, let me, okay. The other thing for this one, I am working from a reference. Um, I don't always stick to my references uh, exactly, but I am working from a reference. And if you guys are interested in my references, I share a lot of those on Patreon as well as my process for making those references. Another thing that I do, I'll often, like if I'm working on the eyes, for example, I will pull up pictures. I'll just show you my, so next to me, let's see if I can do this. Next to me, I have a stand. There's my palette, and I have my iPad. And I will just like pull up pictures of the old masters or, whatever reference that I find. And I'm using this. So like this is a completely different angle, completely different lighting setup than this one, but I'm still using it just as that as a reference to help me, um, if that makes sense. So even though that's not the eye that I'm painting, I will have multiple images up uh, to look back on as I go through this. One of the easiest ways to convey believability when you're painting the eyes is avoiding lines. I don't know, maybe that's an obvious one. But I feel like my eyes improved a whole lot once I stopped making harsh lines around the iris, the eyelids. Oh, let's see. Let me bring you guys closer to the painting so you can see it better. I have a rag here that I hold. Either set it next to me or lately I've just been holding it. And in between, I'm constantly drying off my brush. When I go into blend, I like to have my brush as dry as possible, and then I'm just dry brushing the paint into its neighbor, and that's how I accomplish most of my blending. I find it gives me nice soft feathered edges while still retaining the shape of the paint. Hello, it's nice seeing you work live. Yay! Well, thanks for joining. I wish I could play music as I worked. However, the last time I did it, YouTube kicked me off of the live. That's why I'll paint on TikTok live, just because they seem to not care if you have background music playing. But if anyone knows a way to get around that, please let me know. For this one, I'm using my standard skin color palette that I always use. Again, if you're curious about that, I have free videos. You go see them on Patreon where I break down how I make my skin tones. I have recently started trying out some other things with my skin tones. I don't. I'll share it over there. But I feel like it's working. I've been using a lot of transparent paints just to build up some of these subsequent layers. It's been really fun. But some of the paints are so expensive. I don't always love recommending them at first because I feel like a lot of times they're used for such obscure reasons. And I hate seeing people spend like $60 on a tube of paint and then they say they never use it. So generally I try to keep my recommendations, I try and stick with like easily accessible paints. And I'm kind of rambling right now, apologies. This is why I need music in the background, so I don't feel the pressure to talk. Anyways, if you guys are watching and if you have any questions, let me know. I used to hate this part of the painting process. It's very time consuming. The results take a long time to realize, and that used to bore me a lot. But I have started I've kind of forced myself to slow down in the past few months, and I've really started to enjoy this process a lot more. It's almost meditative. Your rambling is fine since you are still sharing tips. Cool, cool. All right, see, every time I'm wiping this brush off, making sure, and you can see like there's no paint on it after I wipe it off good. And then I'm gonna go in and I blend. You'll often hear people say not to blend on the canvas, and there's a good reason for it. And because it often, if you're not doing it correctly, you'll create muddy colors. But as long as you know what causes muddy colors and how to fix muddy colors, then you really don't have to worry about it. And you can mix on your canvas as all that you want, which is my favorite way to do it. I'm working on my own art right now, so I feel like I'm drawing and talking with a friend. Yay! What kind of art are you working on? Also, if anyone is watching this live at a later date, uh, I don't know if the comments will appear, so I don't know. It may just seem like I'm rambling to myself, but I promise I'm answering questions and responding to comments in the chat. I'm probably dating myself by saying I don't know how to work this technology. One of the things that I'm concentrating on, even for all of these little forms, so each one of these individual ones, as it turns into space, so the bottom of the eyelid, as it turns into space, it starts to go under. The top fold here, as that starts to go under, all of those areas, a lot of times where we see those transitions, the saturation increases a whole lot. So I'm just going in here and I'm taking these transparent, warm, saturated hues, and I'm really just loading it up in there. And that's going to help with the believability of these shapes turning in space. This is where, for me, it sometimes gets tedious, but I feel like it pays off when it's actually executed right. And oftentimes you have to saturate the colors way more than you would think. Most of the time someone approaches me, or that, I get a lot of questions about work where the skin tones don't feel so alive, or they're someone struggling with gray tones or muddy colors. It's almost always an issue of saturation, comparative saturation. Like, you can have a portrait with cool tones or desaturated skin tones, but you still want to remember the principles of form as you are treating those shapes. I'm working on digital art right now in anime style. Very cool. I used to do a lot of digital art, but I recently tried getting back into it, and I found it so hard to get back into. But I'd like to try again soon. Hey, Miriam, love your work. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. For those that just joined, we are just going through this portrait. I figured I'd show you some real live, uh, in real time painting progress. And if you have any questions, let me know. One of the things I'm curious about, what's the quality look like on your end, guys? Like the video quality? Because it looks kind of fuzzy as I'm looking at the camera right now. Hopefully it's not fuzzy looking on your end. All right, one of the other things, so you can kind of see me doing it here. I generally take a middle out approach when I'm blending colors. So even though right here, I know this is going to end up being brighter, I'm putting in this darker color here because I need to start spreading it out to the edges. So I always start from the middle and then work myself out from there when I'm blending or shading stuff, or anytime I'm rendering anything really. I almost always start from the middle. And then, so my last correct color that I'll put in will be the middle color because I get all those end colors finalized first. Hopefully that makes sense what I'm saying. Casting to my TV and it's crystal clear to me. Oh, perfect. Good. I was worried about what the quality would be like. It's not fuzzy looking at all. How did you come to this composition? Um, so I favor this like shoulder up composition in a lot of my work. One, simply because it's like, it's fairly easy, and if I'm feeling lazy, it's kind of something that I default to, which I'm trying to rectify. But it is, okay, so when I'm painting, I'm generally like, and I'm planning out a composition, I'm generally thinking of rules of third. And then if I'm going for something uneasy, which this one is a bit, I will make my composition match that a bit. So generally, like if this were a really pleasing portrait for me, I wanted it to just be like a pretty standard portrait, I probably would have lowered her down a bit so her eyes were like around here. But I feel like moving her up helped with the uneasiness of the portrait. At least that's what was going through my mind. Let's see, what other questions? Oh, no. Oh, okay, I answered those. Question. What do you use as your portfolio? I want to build mine, but I don't know what to use. That's actually a really good question. And I honestly, I have like 10 old pictures. Like, so are you talking about a professional portfolio to like submit somewhere, or to have, like if someone asks to see your portfolio? If that's what you're asking, yeah, I have like 10 old pictures on my website. I don't really have a portfolio, which is probably an issue. I'm really bad at photographing my work, cataloging it. It's something I need to get better at. Yeah, like something online. I'm also not good at photographing my paintings. I feel you on that. All right, I think I'm gonna leave this eye. Oh, I just muddied that up. I didn't wipe off my brush good enough. I hate it when that happens. Okay, I think I'm gonna leave the eye alone after I just fix that mistake I just made. Oh, let's see, Miriam, what's your priming process look like? Layers, sanding, etc. Okay, that's a good question. So, one thing about me is I am a lazy artist, or as I like to call, an efficient artist. And so, anytime I can save myself time, I will do so. So, often I buy my surfaces pre primed. So, this is a smooth surface pre primed panel that I bought from Blix. And when I do that, all I do is I just take a wet cloth and wipe it down to remove any dust. But I don't do any additional gessoing or priming for surfaces like this. Now let me show you. I also have, okay, let's see. Okay, I have this, it's a giant 6-foot painting that I'm working on in the background here. So that I had to buy the wood myself, construct the surface of it. That one I did about 4 layers of gesso, sanding in between. And that was on like MDF hardwood. But yeah, just lots of gessoing and sanding. It's my least favorite process. Yeah, generally if I can get out of priming, I will. Another surface that I like to work on is oil paper. Arches oil paper, and you also don't have to do any additional priming for Arches oil paper as well. I really love a smooth surface. Just because when I look at a painting, I love to see that, oh man, I just got paint all over my hands. Sorry, guys. I love to see the texture of the paint itself versus seeing the texture of the canvas underneath. But that's just personal preference. I know many people feel strongly that they do like the surface of the canvas. So whatever floats your boat. I found a lot of artists have conflicting methods with priming, so it's hard to get a defined right way. It seems more personal preference. Yeah, totally. I think as long as you're just sealing it properly, um, that's like the main thing. But yeah, finding a way that works for you. There's oil paper. Yes, oil paper is one of my absolute favorite things to work on. The other cool thing about oil paper is you can mount it onto a surface either before or after your painting. So you can you can just wrap it around canvas or a wood panel and paint on it just like you would a canvas. Oil paper is also pretty easy to store. It takes up less space, and I find it pretty cost effective compared to a lot of other options. And the blending on oil paper is just amazing. All right, last little bit on this eye. I know I said I'd stop with the eye for now. All right, what do I want to work on next? That nose is kind of bothering me. So hopefully you guys, I think the big takeaway for this video for me, I just wanted to really show like what it looks like in real time and just how slow the process can be. And like, I feel like if I screenshotted my progress at the beginning of this 30-minute video to where I am right now, um, it would probably be hard to tell the difference. Because some of the changes are so minute and they take a long time. So a lot of times when people show me their work, or ask me to critique their work or tell me that they're frustrated with their work, they often don't believe me when I tell them it looks amazing, it looks great. They just need to keep pushing it. And that's, I think, one of the things that's helped me the most in the past few years is just learning to be patient enough with my work and being able to push it further. There's so many of my old works where I'm like, oh, the foundation was nice. Like, why didn't I just actually finish rendering out stuff? Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm living in a very small place with my husband and 2 boys, so saving space is a huge plus. Yes, I totally feel you on that. My studio is in my home, and I have 3 small children running around, and they get into everything. And yeah, I'm always trying to conserve space as much as possible. The only thing with oil paper is it can be easy to overload it with paint, and then sometimes that slows the drying process. If I'm using oil paper, I will use fast drying medium to help speed it up. I know I started this off by saying I'm not using medium and I don't like to use medium. That is my preference, but if I'm using oil paper, I want to make sure it dries fast. All right, guys, I'm probably going to hop off in a second because I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and here it is almost noon, which means it is time for me to eat. And maybe I'll hop on later. But if you have any questions, let me know. I'll stay on for another minute so I can answer those. But otherwise, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. And if you have any more questions, feel free to check out my Patreon. I go into a lot more detail there, and I share the full process of stuff over there. Thank you for streaming. Yes, of course. I got to do this more often. This was fun. I'm in Seattle, Washington, and I'm having breakfast right now. Ooh, I love Seattle. I just went for the first time this past year. It's beautiful. Thank you for the live. Yes, of course. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining. Oh, I'm in the UK and about to start making dinner. Look at this, a worldwide crew. Well, enjoy dinner, enjoy breakfast, and for those in my time zone, enjoy lunch. Adios.